No, I mean, they weren't different. It's always funny when you see, like, when the Pope talked about how evolution is not in competition with faith, and I'm like, well, Father Principe taught me that in 1973. So it's like, and they didn't write a New York Times story about that one. I think the problem is people in my profession tend to look at religion through the lens of partisan politics. So they like to impose the left-right spectrum on it, which they're fine with it when it agrees with what they agree with. But then also it's like, my God, he's retrograde. What about female ordination? Why can't he do that? And it's like, that's when it starts getting crazy because they're looking at it from the wrong perspective. I think at the same time, he has a certain personal style being Latin American, although it is funny that in the beginning people were questioning if he's really Latin American because he's Argentine and his folks are from Italy. But I think that's been gone away. But within the press, you had this guy compared to who he succeeded. That was charismatic. That had some different priorities, not different views, but different priorities. What are we going to emphasize? And that played in. And I think it's become even more so now after the 2016 election with the general partisanship we see across the country. I think some people within the media like to look at him as almost like a counterweight to what we see on the political scene. I mean, he is speaking out about things that need to be spoken about. Or he is, again, being Latino, he might say something indirectly. If those of you who are Puerto Rican or whatever know the history of indirectas, you say something, and was he really talking about me? But I think, he is seen as this counterbalance, I think, and for good and bad. Because again, once you start interpreting it along a political spectrum, you're going to be lost. Right. You're going to be lost because then it's going to be like, well, what about a woman's right to choose? Well, that's right now it's not debatable, and it would be kind of foolish to think that he has to take on that issue when he knows that you're not going to get change on that right now, but you can get some change maybe on some other stuff that we need to refocus on. And I think also, the focus on issues of poverty, of unemployment, and issues in the third world. I mean, those are things that, some papers and some media outlets have been covering consistently. And so all of a sudden, here's got weighing in on it in a very deep way. The New York Times goes nuts over covering the Pope. I mean, I've been part of 3 teams now that covered 3 popes. And it's funny, it's like, all these strategy meetings and story lists are drawn up. And, somebody once said, why does the New York Times devote so much attention to the Pope? And this was, I think, under either Max or Frankel or Abe Rosenthal. Said, well, the Times editors see the church as the only other infallible institution.
Hierarchical.
But I mean, I think it's a question of style, there's a question of focus. There's a question of the guy knows how to talk. He knows how to communicate and make that connection, make a real connection. And people like that, especially given the brief tenure of Benedict. But again, the danger is you start thinking that, because he agrees on certain things here on social policy, and then he makes missteps. Like, what happened in Chile was, all of them people like, my God, how could he have said that? That is hurt. But I think, if anything, people will go beyond that right now. I think, again, they're looking at it politically and seeing him as one of the voices that needs to be heard right now, given the lack of dialogue that's going on from both the left and the right, and also what we're seeing now in terms of policies that are perceived as anti-immigrant, anti-poor, all these things that we need to build a strong country, educated kids, healthy kids, decent housing, jobs. These are the things that they've all talked about this, but for some reason now I think people are more receptive to this. And also you have the whole question of this social media and just all this other information that we're being bombarded with, but he's been smart about that. So he's gotten out there and at least, joined that conversation, inviting others